Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. We is me, I'm JD, and who's the other we?
It's Michelle.
It's
I'm
Michelle!
the other we.
Yay!
Yay!
We are the we in We Watch Shudder. We with one E, not we with two E's. Although I guess, I don't know, maybe technically either would apply. Anyway... and then Shudder, of course, is the horror movie streaming service that we are big fans of and talk about all of their new movies all the time. Isn't that right, Michelle?
That is true. Every Thursday, unless they don't release an original or exclusive, which they have done to trick us on occasion.
Yeah, and then we just find something else cool to talk about for that week.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
We're creative and talented, relatively young still people.
Oh, why you gotta bring age into it?
I just kind of went there without thinking, and about halfway through it, I was like, "Oh, what have you done?" And I just
My bones hurt.
I tried to ease out of it as best I could.
That's fair.
So, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about On the Third Day, which I forgot the actual name of, but it's from Argentina. Argentina. I forgot the country name.
Argentina is the name.
Argentina. I kept trying to say like Argentina. Okay, there we go. Thank you.
I'm trying to find.
My
I didn't
brain
even
broke.
realize there was a real name. I thought On the Third Day was the name of the movie.
No, there is an original name of it, which is on IMDb.
Yeah,
El
Tercer
Dia.
Yeah, El Tercer Dia. That's the third
Yeah.
day.
No, I know, but I'm saying it's English versus not English.
I thought you meant it had like a totally different name.
Like it was called The Door or something.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
no.
I
was just
so
trying to remember
lost for a minute.
Oh my goodness.
What a start we're off to on a Thursday evening. Hey, I got an idea. Let's talk about this movie, huh? Michelle,
good idea.
Michelle, hit us with your spoiler-free thoughts.
Do you want me to do that before you do the Shudder description of this movie?
Oh, no, I don't. Man, we're having a good one. Yeah. It was a very long day at work today. Okay. So as we do, as Michelle thankfully reminded me, I'm going to read the description of this film directly from the Shudder website. I even had it pulled up on the screen right in front of me, and I was just going to blow right by it. Here is how they describe it. While on a trip with her young son, Cecilia has a car accident. 3 days later, she finds herself wandering a lonely road with no sign of her child and no memory of what happened after the crash. Cecilia's desperate search for her son leads her on a wrenching and tumultuous journey to face off against a religious fanatic who holds the shocking key to it all. A Shudder exclusive. Michelle.
Yes.
Now, please, hit us with your spoiler-free thoughts.
Yes. Okay. There is a lot going on in this movie. And I think what a lot of it comes down to is audio. I am not a...
Don't dive too deep into this right now, because we'll definitely want to talk about that. Oh, my Lord.
But this factors into my rating so much that I do have to talk about it a little bit.
Yup.
I am not a purist. I watch a lot of anime, so I have seen dubbed and subbed. I have seen all versions of both. I am not a purist. I don't think that things have to be subtitled to be good. This is some of the worst dubbing of anything.
It's terrible!
And
how did this make it to the screen?
And Shudder does not offer an option aside from the dubbed version. The sound design is so bad. In addition to just terrible music, not everything needs to be a crescendo moment. Everything does not need to be screeching violins. It is constant to the point that this movie is unwatchable on Shudder. It is actively irritating. I don't know if it would even benefit from the original audio, because aside from that, if I watched this on mute, I don't think I would have enjoyed it anyway. It would have been like a 2-star movie. So in its current state on Shudder, it is a 1-star. It is unwatchable. And
Those are skulls, Michelle.
Oh, yeah.
Those are skulls. One skull.
Sorry, 1 out of 5 skulls.
Yeah.
It is unwatchable and irritating.
Yeah, I have to immediately agree with you on that. I don't know. I'm not against the concept of dubbing. I believe we've talked about this before. I'm totally okay with the idea of a dub. In fact, if the dub is done well, I at times prefer it because I have some attention deficit issues that kind of make watching a subtitled movie a little challenging sometimes. This is some of the worst dubbing I have ever seen. It's so bad. Like, it's so bad to the point that, you mentioned the original audio, I don't feel like I can even fairly judge this movie because I feel like I haven't actually seen it.
Yes,
like
I completely agree.
It's like there's a moment just to point out to you before we get into the more spoiler. Well, I'll save this for later, guys. Here's I mean, if you want to watch it, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Michelle gave it 1 skull. There were things about this movie that I really, really enjoyed. But there were also things that really infuriated me. I liked it a little bit more than Michelle. I'm giving it 2 skulls. And I'll explain why coming up, but that gives us an average of 1.5.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now if you want to go watch this movie, now's your time.
Hey, yeah.
I mean, it's good for a laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
okay, they're still here.
Yeah. So in it, first of all, I wanted to say this in the spoiler section, even though it's not even our spoiler. In addition to the terrible audio in this film, the absolute horrific dubbing. Well, before I get to this part, let me just tell that story I was just about to tell about the terrible dubbing. The example. There's a scene where the estranged father comes in to see the child, and this is literally their dialogue exchange. The father says, "Hey, how are you doing?" And the kid says, "I'm fine, I'm good, how are you?" And the dad says, "Oh, I'm fine, how are you?" And the kid says, "Oh, I'm good." What the fuck?
I wrote down a line from that same conversation, but it was, "He's my son and I'm his father."
Yeah, the dub.
I don't know what the original audio was.
I don't have any idea what they were actually saying. It's so
horrible.
And there are examples like that throughout the entire movie.
It
so
is
anyway,
so bad.
Yeah, like, and if you, as we're going along, let's do a thing where if you happen to remember any other weird, bad dub moments that happened, just shout them out. But here's the other thing that infuriated me about this movie. So I went to Shudder to turn this movie on, right? And I see the picture and the promo imagery, and I'm like, oh, cool. So this is going to be like some kind of weird vampire monster movie, right? And I was right, but that's supposed to be a fucking surprise. Yep. Like, they don't reveal what's actually, like, you figure it out. Like, if you're any kind of movie watcher at all, even if they hadn't given you everything in this image on the website, you would have doped it all out. But Jesus Christ, they just give away the big reveal of the bad guy monster right there on the fucking screen. Like, who fucking made that decision? I'm saying F-bombs a lot because and the reason it infuriates me is because, like I said, there are things about this movie I really enjoyed, and I promise I'm going to talk about them, but fuck, that made me so mad.
There are so many weird choices in this movie. Okay, so here's where things started. Before this, I was like, okay, maybe it's just bad dubbing. Okay, maybe it's just bad sound design in general, because the screeching violin got on my nerves within 5 minutes. It's constant. Like, you walk into a room and like,
it
why?
Does that really annoying audio thing that a lot of movies do these days, where the louds are crazy loud and the quiets are super quiet, and you got to be adjusting the volume the whole time.
And it was so out of place, and I was so irritated. So I was like, okay, if I was watching this on mute, let's like turn down the volume and just like try to watch this also with subtitles, just to try to get past all the sound.
I was hoping that maybe if I turned the because I didn't turn the subtitles on until about 5 minutes into the movie, and I was hoping that when I turned them on, I was going to get some other variation of the dialogue. And no, it's identical. It's
Yeah.
identical to the terrible dub script. Ugh.
It does
Gross.
not make any sense.
Nope.
So I was watching this and I was already feeling like, what is going on with this movie? Because I was kind of like, okay, this is like not well presented. Can I get into the story? Can I get into other things? Are there other elements that I like? And the point that I went, no, this is going to be an awful experience is at exactly 17 minutes 14 seconds. She is talking to the old woman who then dies in the hospital.
Uh-huh.
And there's a mirror off to the side, and they went through the lengths of putting her back CGI'd into the mirror, even though it's not anywhere near her. It's not angled anywhere near her. So obviously, like, that gave away like mirrors are going to be a big part of that. I
Right.
wonder what that could mean. And it just like it makes no sense. And like you actively went through the hassle of putting her in a mirror that she's not near and not angled like that. And it was just this weird disconnect that I went, this movie is not good and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And the fact that they went to extra lengths to make bad decisions
Yeah.
is,
And
I did not like it at
I
all.
do also want to be honest that like or talk about the script a little, because the script was also not good.
Yeah.
It's not one of the things I liked about this. I am upset that the way the story plays out, the big vampire creature reveal is a big reveal at the end of the film, and they just give that all the way in the promotional materials. But
Yeah,
at the
doesn't make any sense.
At the same time, I don't understand why it's a big secret reveal at the end of the movie, because again, even without those images, I knew this was a vampire movie the instant they had that scene where he sees the blonde lady on the hood of his truck, and he says, "That's not your blood." Like, the instant you draw attention to blood, I'm just like,
Yep.
so it was that on top of, oh, it's a weird box, aka coffin, something's
Yep.
chained up in. Okay. There's apparently an angle involving the Catholic Church here that just goes nowhere and is never explained, does nothing. Also, yeah, so like, not only did I figure out very early on that it was a vampire thing, so I don't know why that was played out as such a big surprise. I also figured out immediately when, like, as soon as they said, oh, she showed up 3 days later and she's acting weird and she's not sleeping and the kid's nowhere to be found, I'm like, okay, the vampire monster in the box turned her into a vampire and she killed her son. Which is exactly what happened. It's so obvious that I don't understand why they tried to make it any kind of a mystery. Like, I knew exactly where this was going 20 minutes in.
It wanders all over the place.
Yeah.
And like the big like not flashback, but like the what's the word, hypnotizing her,
The hypnotism
like
scene
to figure out what happened, like that is a weird story method. We should talk about, since we're talking about the ending of this, let's talk about the credits, because the way that this movie ends is so ridiculous with the way that the credits start scrolling that I kept the credits on and I was just watching the images and I was like, I like when a movie makes me want to watch the credits. Usually I don't. I go on IMDb and I check details out, but I don't usually sit there and watch scrolling credits.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, it's cool that they're giving me a method to want to watch these, but at the same time, like, I'm watching them because I'm so just dumbfounded by this entire experience, and this is just ridiculous. And then there's a post-credit scene.
Yep.
That just I have so many questions about it where I was like, oh good, maybe they're gonna give us an ending, kind of, but then it's a weird, I don't understand a lot of what I watched. I'm very just baffled.
The gist I got from it is the weird Nosferatu monster and the lady and the boy are now like a weird vampire Brady Bunch family.
Oh yeah, no, I get what they're saying. I don't understand why. that's the part of like
can you turn somebody into a vampire like 3 days after you killed them? That's not a thing I've ever heard of before. Can you like, why did he rip the lady's red shirt off? What was that even about? It's just like, and
I don't
like it. Even weirdly enough, it still would have been ridiculous, but it at least would have made sense if she had been like just like full blown tits out at that point, right? Because then it's like, oh,
yep.
it's exploitational horror. We want tits in our movie. But it's not. And like, to the extent that because there's the whole thing where the kid is wearing the red hooded jacket, and for some reason the vampire monster didn't kill the kid. And so I even went looking to see if there's like something in vampire mythology that I never heard of where they don't like red things. I can't find anything. There's apparently this weird Nosferatu monster doesn't like red things for some reason. I don't understand.
I'm very confused
Yeah.
about it.
I
had something else to say, but I forgot.
Go ahead.
So you go ahead. No, you go ahead. I have forgotten.
Sure.
Oh, no, I was going to say this is just why my rating was a 1 star, because even if the audio had been the original dialogue, and that I'm assuming the dialogue was better, the music would have been the same, the story would have been the same. It would have been like 2 stars at best.
Sure.
I would not recommend
disagree.
that anybody watch this on Shudder specifically, but I also wouldn't recommend that anybody watch this. I did not like it.
Right. And that's where I want to get into the place where, because I don't disagree with you on any of that at all. But I do want to get to why I did give it the 2 skulls instead of 1, because there are things about this movie I love. This movie is a delicious stylistic thing, especially if you have certain frames of reference in your mind. First of all, like it's a vampire movie in 2022, but it's not like a super violent, gory, bloody vampire movie. In fact, it hit me about 2/3 of the way through the movie. It was like, oh, this is like a modern spin on like an old like Christopher Lee Hammer horror kind of gothic vampire movie. And I liked that choice. I thought that was an interesting idea to kind of try to modernize more of a gothic. And interestingly enough, I don't know if you noticed it, but they have a list of thank yous in the credits, and I didn't see them all, but 2 of the names in the credits were Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, who were huge parts of Hammer horror, of course.
That's cool.
And then also, there's all the, and it even feels like the style of it feels like a Hammer movie at times. And then it also has these great elements of like 1970s Italian horror movies,
which you love.
The hypnotism scene is way too long. Just way too long, and like it felt like it was like a 20-minute sequence, but the way they did it, I loved, with like the weird lighting where it just zooms down onto the dude's eyes and they keep getting those close-ups of their faces, and then they got like the faces suddenly fading in the memories and stuff. Like visually, I thought that was really cool. I thought the eaten up body effects of the woman that he dumped all the chemicals on when he made the soup person.
Yes,
I thought that was really, really well done. I even thought the vampire creature makeup was decent, except for the fact that it was completely like every vampire monster you've seen for the last 20 years. There was nothing unique about it. And that's why, as soon as I saw the picture on the cover, I was like, oh, it's a vampire movie. Because it's clearly a fucking vampire. What else would that thing have been? Yeah. So especially if you're a big fan of the visual style and atmosphere and feel of like Hammer horror movies and like Dario Argento and some of Fulci's less gory violent stuff, there are I'm really curious to see other things this fella has done, because as I understand, Daniel De La Vega not only directed it, but he was also the cameraman, did a lot of the production. So I'm certainly curious to maybe take a look at some other things he's done, because I thought there were some really interesting cinematic choices and stylistic choices here. But, you can only polish a turd so much, right?
Yeah, so that's interesting that you mentioned that Daniel De La Vega was camera and everything, because when I got done with this movie, I went to do some research on different things, and one of the things that I like is getting exposed to different countries' horror, because I think that's one thing that doing this podcast, I have learned a lot about different countries.
Absolutely.
The one that it was the sadness was from
Taiwan, I believe.
Taiwan, yeah. And like getting that exposure to countries I'm not as familiar with is really cool.
From Taiwan, but directed by a Canadian in some
I love
recipe.
that movie.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know if you, well, you wouldn't have heard yet because it doesn't actually drop until tomorrow, but The Sadness made my top 10 for the first half of
yes.
2022. That's going to be coming out on the next episode of my other podcast, by the way. It's called All Screens Great and Small. We got a special bonus episode dropping tomorrow. It's our top 10 films of the year so far. I think it would be super cool of you if you would go and check that out. That's me and my friend Scott on that podcast. Oh, and that one we talk about all sorts of movies. Over here, we talk about the filth. That's what we do.
Yes, we do. And continuing the discussion of the film, because
yes.
I got off.
Yeah, sorry.
I got
no,
that's okay. I made a note. I was good. We can go back to it.
I may have mentioned I have some attention issues every now and then.
What? No, we both do. That's why I was like just looking at the word
look, it's a
Argentina.
squirrel.
Like, do not forget the word Argentina. But so Argentina. I went to look at what other horror is from Argentina. One of them that you really like was Virus 32, which I did not.
I dug that movie.
we disagreed on that one. But Terrified is one of my favorite movies I have ever seen from Shudder, and that is from Argentina. And
interestingly, one that I didn't particularly care for all that much.
Yeah, yep, we had differing opinions on it.
And then on this one, we were pretty much on the same page.
Yeah, I need to go find who the actual name was, but just from a brief article I was reading, the guy who did the cinematography on this also did it for Terrified.
Okay.
And so that's why visually I agree that the visuals are amazing. They're similar to this other Argentinian film that I had seen. But it wasn't Daniel de la Vega. So now I'm trying to figure out like who it was.
Oh, and, we're on the hunt now.
Yeah, exactly. I knew I mentioned this and that we'd have to go find this guy, because that guy specifically is what I liked about Terrified, and he is what I liked about this. So I got to go find the matching name, and I have no idea on this list who it was. This is cinematography.
We're having a
real time. Oh, I found it. His name is Mariano Suarez.
Okay.
So I guess what this guy does is stuff that we should look into more, because he did the cinematography for On the Third Day, and then he did it for Terrified, and there's a whole bunch of things on here that I have never heard of, and I'm very excited to start watching some more.
I was sure I saw a credit in there that said something about the director also doing camera work. Maybe
It does say he's camera and electrical department. I had to go look. Yep. Nope, you are correct. I had to. That immediately put me on like
crazy? Am I losing my mind? What's happening?
Well, yes.
Well, yeah,
but that's why I started doing like a real time search while you were talking, because I was like, camera electrical department. Well, then what was the name I saw? But he was cinematographer.
Okay.
So, which there is such a like good overlap of those working together, obviously, as movie
literally just lost like half of our audience.
That's fine. It's at the end, but if people stuck around, then they know like Mariano Suarez is a person to check out more from, because so far, at least visually, the visual part from this movie is very good. The rest of the movie was garbage, but I like what he did, and I love Terrified, and I want to check out more things that he has visually made appealing, because I have a feeling he has a lot of projects that are in post-production right now that I will be checking out.
Awesome.
So
I have to I have to more or less agree with Michelle overall. I can't say entirely that nobody should see this movie. You should only see this movie with the full understanding that what you're going in for is just to see some cool visuals and stylistic choices that are very specifically centered around, like I said, kind of like gothic hammer horror vampire movies and 70s Italian horror kind of vibe. It's definitely got some interesting creative things to say there, but other than that, if that's not something you're interested in, don't waste your time.
And despite loving the visuals, I felt like I wasted an hour and a half, and I did not think that it was.
Oh yeah, because in case you didn't hear us, one of the worst fucking dubs I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God, it was so bad.
I had to keep pausing it because I was like zoning out from being so annoyed. It was like when somebody talks at you and you just like. You know that they're an idiot, and you start zoning out their words.
This is one of those things that I think maybe I've mentioned on a previous episode somewhere, but it's a thing I talk about all the time, is like, this had to make it through so many different levels of approval And like, I just think of like how many people had to sign off on this for it to finally get to us in this form. And apparently at no point whatsoever did any of them say, hang on, this is fucking bad.
He's my son, and I'm his father.
Yeah. Yeah.
God,
how are you? Oh, I'm fine. I'm good. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm good.
I wonder if the voice actors also don't speak English, so they did not know. Nobody who speaks English did anything with this film. They put it into Google Translate and then tried their best.
I would hope that the people who acted in this film saw the finished product and were furious. Like, I would hope, because I sure would be. It is so. Anyway, guys, we don't really need to say anything more. Before we go, though, guys, we have a thing to talk about. We've been.
Is it the third day?
No.
On the third day?
No, it is absolutely not.
Okay.
We've been talking for a couple of weeks now about a cool thing that we're getting involved with that we're going to be doing coming up here with the podcast in the Fargo area. And here's what's happening. In August, on August 4th, here in Fargo, North Dakota, there is an event taking place that We Watch Shudder is an official sponsor of. Michelle and I are, we've become official sponsors of the event. We're going to be out there live in person for you to come say hello and meet us and chat with us a little while. And here's what it is, guys. I'm so fucking stoked. We are sponsoring Time Bomb Pro Wrestling.
Woo!
Yes! If you got, first of all, I don't know if we've ever mentioned it here on We Watch Shudder, but JD Provor's huge pro wrestling fan since I was like 7 years old. It was like my first ever favorite thing in life.
And Michelle Roller grew up in a trailer house, so she watched a lot of wrestling growing up as well.
Yeah,
and she moved out of the trailer house, and it didn't stick with her as much, but I still really like it.
I picked it up in the trailer house, and it stuck to my ribs like fat and candy. But oh my god! So Time Bomb is a company that got its start, super indie punk rock DIY kind of vibe. They got their start up in Grand Forks, doing these weird alternative events where they went to places and they had matches with no ring. Right? Guys would just do their pro wrestling moves just on the floor surrounded by a group of people. And they did some like at the Aquarium, which is a rock and roll concert venue here in Fargo. And it's just this kid, Eric Morrison. He's not a kid. He's a young man at this point. But he
age again. No more talking about age in this episode. I just had a birthday.
For a few years now, he's been putting a lot of effort into this thing and building it up. They're doing big events all over. In fact, they just did their first event in Canada, or are just about to do their first event in Canada, rather. This very night tonight, they are live in Grand Forks. Time Bomb Pro Wrestling. If you are a fan of pro wrestling at all, this is going to be a good show for you. They always got a cool variety of things. Action-packed, athletic-type matches. You're even going to get some violent, bloody kind of death match type stuff right up a horror fan's alley. It's going to be so cool, and we would love for you to come out and see the show and also say hello to us. Michelle tells me she's got some cool ideas for our meet and greet station. Are you going to tell anybody about them? Are you going to tell me about them, or are you just keeping everything to yourself?
I at least have business cards, which are very exciting.
Man,
but I know. I'm working on stuff.
Michelle.
I used to do meet and greets professionally, so I'm like, oh man, I can get like all the swag that I've ever wanted, and so I have not solidified what do I want to get. There's a lot of things. I kind of just want to like throw money at this side project that we started.
Yeah.
So, like, even if we only have 50 listeners, I'm so excited about it that I'm like, I will put $100,000 into our swag.
Well, I'm glad that you will, because JD is poor. Anyway, guys, so check out Time Bomb Pro Wrestling coming up in Fargo August 4th. It's going to be a really great show. I can assure you, as a fan of independent pro wrestling, it is one of the greatest promotions going on this level nationwide. Going to be some fantastic talent there, and we're going to be a part of it.
I'm so excited because I've never seen independent wrestling live, but I watch it online I still like wrestling. I just don't follow the lore.
So you've never been to a pro wrestling show where you were literally like 10 feet away from the ring.
No, I used to go to WWE and things, but even then I wasn't 10 feet away from the ring.
Yeah,
so I'm very, very excited.
It's gonna be fun. All right, guys, we're stoked about that. We're gonna be back next week with another review for you. We've kept these people way too long. We were not even going to tell you what it is. Keep an eye on the Facebook. Keep an eye on the Instagram. What else do we got, Michelle? Facebook and Instagram? Is that what it is?
Facebook and Instagram right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right
carrier pigeon for
sure.
people who pay us. I will send a carrier pigeon to your house.
Awesome.
You pay me for it. Yep.
So don't waste your time with this movie, guys. It was not fun. I just wanted to get that in there one more time. Say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.